Hmm? Ah!
I'm not going to swear an oath I can't uphold. Talk about my father if you want. Tell me that's the attitude that got him killed. But when enough people make false promises, words stop meaning anything. Then there are no more answers, only better and better lies. And lies won't help us in this fight.
That is indeed a problem. The more immediate problem is that we're fucked.
Hey, Throners, welcome to our podcast. I'm Jason.
And I'm Duncan.
And I'm Melissa.
This is Game of Microphones, episode 41. Welcome back, Melissa.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Have you been watching Game of Thrones?
You know, it's funny. Yeah, I haven't. So, I just figured I'd hear from you guys what's happened the last few weeks. It's the last two... Since I haven't been on the podcast, there were 2 weekends in a row or something. Basically, the last shows that I've seen, I've been able to watch 2 episodes on Sunday, which has been kind of nice.
That's so cool.
Oh, so you watched 2 at once? You missed a week and watched 2 at once, like a movie, huh?
Yeah, because I was not around, and I was like, well, fuck it, and I just played the internets very carefully as far as spoilers.
Were you successful in not being spoiled?
The only thing that was kind of spoiled for me was I saw... I kind of saw that one of the dragons was going to get it.
Yeah.
I just kind of put it together, and I was like, oh, God damn it.
Damn it.
But it was okay. It was okay. I still... Yeah. It was difficult, but it was nice last night, especially, to watch, especially because last week's episode was like an hour and 18 minutes, and then last night's episode was an hour and a half. So yeah, it was pretty awesome to binge out on the Thronage.
And it's movie quality, better than most.
Yes.
Oh man,
Indeed.
Seriously.
I want to make a couple of announcements before we get started with this week's highlights. First off, it's the finale of season 7. No more Game of Thrones for at least a year probably, but I just want to thank all you guys for listening. Everyone who's been around for a while, the dogs, everyone.
Maple also says thanks, yes.
And all the new listeners that we picked up this year, because the podcast is doing more than it ever has before. I think with the popularity of the show, the podcast popularity grows. So welcome to all you guys, and thank you guys for listening. The show is over for now, but not the podcast. There's a few things to tide you over until next season. The first is Duncan, Rima, and our friend Sean did a special exclusive episode with their top 3 highlights for season 7 as a whole. And that was part of this whole initiative with other Game of Thrones podcasts put together by Ball Move for a charity. So if you go check it out for a small donation, you get exclusive episodes from all these podcasts. I think there's 10 of them, 10 different Game of Thrones podcasts, all the big ones. And I'll put a link in the show notes if you're interested in that. Also, Duncan came up with a great idea. So we started this podcast, Game of Microphones, really with season 5 of Game of Thrones. That's when we started covering episode by episode. But Duncan's like, well, why don't we go back and cover seasons 1 through 4? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So
yeah.
So we're going to be doing that pretty soon. And I think what we're going to do, instead of
Maybe I should join in on that.
Yeah,
Sorry not to interrupt you.
yes.
If I join in on that, then I'll actually start remembering who the fuck people are. And
Absolutely. And here's the thing is...
that would make people happy.
We were talking about whether we should do it from the perspective of someone who hasn't seen the series yet. And that would be cool just if new people are coming to the show and they discover our podcast. But we just think it would be too hard to pretend we don't know anything. And also not as much fun. So I think what we're going to do instead is go through them and just talk about, oh, isn't it cool where this led? Or, wow, we didn't even notice this before, so that we can have the perspective of the whole series.
Nice.
Yeah,
that'll be fun.
It'll be really fun to see, little things that we didn't notice back then, but have taken on new significance and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's so cool too. Like I can't even watch an old episode without noticing a million things that are important in some way or another seasons down the line, so it'll be great.
They're like, there's just so much detail in the storyline that,
Yeah, and I just hope people don't come to it and new to the show and get spoiled and then hate us and curse us and build voodoo dolls.
We can put in the title of every episode that it's a rewatch.
Yeah, rewatch. Okay.
Yeah.
Finally, I don't talk about it that much on Game of Microphones, but a lot of this podcasting that we do is made possible because I quit my job this year and started a Patreon. So if you want to help support that, if you listen to Walking Dead Cast or any of my other podcasts, this is a great way to help support it. So if you want to do that, it's patreon.com/Jason and Karen. And the reason why I said Facebook is because a big part of that is if you pledge at $10 a month, you can be a part of the Facebook group. And there's a ton of really rabid Game of Thrones fans on there. And we talk it all out and have fun with it and put up memes and stuff like that. And it's super fun.
And it seems like there's probably going to be a group of people in there that are all rewatching with the podcast. I know our listener Anwen had mentioned forming a group together in there.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they actually did a rewatch before this season, so I don't know if they're going to want to do another one, but they'll probably at least listen to the podcast.
True.
All right, those are the announcements. Let's get into the meat of it. It's the top 3 highlights of Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 7, The Dragon and the Wolf. Melissa, you have not been around in a while. What did you think of this one in general?
I mean, yeah, oh my god. I thought it was amazing. A lot of shit happened that shall be discussed, I'm sure. And
so much.
It's so much. And it ended in a way that was like... Again, as you said, I think it's definitely at least a year, if not more. I feel like someone was even saying it's closer to 2 years. It was just that kind of like, oh, no, oh, man.
I actually think that this would have made a great series finale if you were a zombie.
Oh, yeah. I'd be like, yeah. This is the best ending ever. I mean, it really was the best zombie ending. Yeah, Team Zombie all the way.
Yeah, they could have had some heroic music playing in the background.
Yeah.
Ride of the Valkyries or something.
Yeah. Totally. But I don't know. I mean, without just getting into too much detail, because I'm sure we're about to discuss it, it was... 100% satisfaction on my end, personally.
Nice. You too, Duncan?
Great. Oh, yeah, totally.
I mean, I've been hoping that John and Danny would get together for a long time. I was hoping that we would have a zombie dragon. I was hoping that the wall would come down at some point, just because these things are set up almost like, I think of it like bubble wrap, that you pop, and this bubble wrap's been sitting around for 7 years, and we're finally getting to pop
waiting
it.
for someone to step on it.
Yeah. Just step
Ace
on
Ventura just came into the storage closet and jumping all over that shit.
Right. He's jumping around. He's popping every bubble. All right, let's get into the top 3. Duncan, why don't you go first?
All right. My number 3 is people taking stands in this episode. And I thought a lot of people... solidified their position in one way or another. I liked when Jaime stood up for Tyrion, when Euron was making all the dwarf jokes. I liked how Jaime stood up for himself when Cersei was criticizing him and manipulating him and plotting behind his back, and he finally, took a stand and went with it
for something
left.
Honorable. Yeah.
Well,
and Tyrion even kind of stood up for himself, I would say, to Euron, which I liked. He stood there
absolutely.
And stared him down, and he looked a little scared, but he wasn't going to back down.
The best part of that too is when he's talking about how he screwed up the joke.
Yeah.
He's like, never explain the joke. It ruins it.
Yeah. And that's the best way that Tyrion can fight someone like Euron, is just make him look stupid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Euron was not. He's been pretty rock star in a few of these last episodes. This one, you were just like, okay,
Tool, come on.
Uncle Greyjoy is a tool.
Stand down.
Jaime has his sword, and Tyrion has his mind, and a mind needs books like a sword needs a whetstone.
Yes.
What else? Who else?
Yeah, so there's Brienne takes a stand. Fuck loyalty.
Yeah, oh my god,
this
that was
is
like the best ever.
That's the
that
best
really-
thing for her to say because she's been all about loyalty every second of her life.
She's the holder of Oathkeeper. You know what I mean? Like
under loyalty in the dictionary, it's Brienne's picture.
absolutely. So like when she said that, it really affected Jaime. Like he was like, "Fuck loyalty."
"Oh,
Like, wait, what? So many people. John took a stand and wouldn't submit to Cersei. He saying, "I already have committed myself to Daenerys." Just everywhere, somebody's making a stand for something. What do you guys think? You guys notice any other examples of that in this episode?
Well, there's both Sansa and Arya with Littlefinger
Yeah,
Absolutely.
taking a stand against him finally.
Yep.
Yeah.
There was
That was
the
great.
dragon taking a stand against the wall, I guess.
Yeah. yeah.
The Night King. Because,
Yeah.
it's like we always kind of joke how, what have these White Walkers been doing all this time? Like, how long does it take them to get here? But the fact is, they really didn't have anywhere to go because the wall is incredibly effective at keeping them out. And now what we find out what they really needed was a dragon. And so it's sort of inadvertently Dany and John's fault. If Dany never would have come
It
over,
really is.
or if John hadn't gone down there, they would have still been stuck behind that wall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're just biding their time till they get a dragon. Basically, it seems like the Night King has seen Bran in the visions, and they kind of connect. So it seems to be some type of green seer or something himself. So he probably had visions of this occurring, and he was just waiting for it to happen
Maybe.
and building his army and building it.
Maybe he had another plan, but this seemed like
Maybe.
a really good plan, or a really
yeah.
good tactic anyway for them.
Well, one more stand was Theon taking a stand.
Oh, yes.
Finally, the
Oh, fuck
redemption,
yeah.
beginning of the redemption of Theon, which I thought was really cool. It took him, he's been separated from his family for so long, meaning the Starks. What it took was him interacting with one of the people that he grew up with, that he loved so much and idolized, to set him to kind of tell him what the situation was, so he could find himself and come to peace with the fact that he's both Stark and a Greyjoy. And I thought that was really really fulfilling moment when he sort of found himself and took a stand. And so that was
He
cool.
finally grew a pair.
Yeah, I know. His character in general has, as an actor, it would just be, he's literally gotten to play like the full spectrum of characters. He's been the
Yes.
total
Really, he has.
douchebag to pretty much evil, but then to like completely like, trapped and tortured, and then just a mere like speck of a human to, it's full circle. It's got to be
and
a
now
lot of fun.
standing up
for
for
him.
himself and showing courage.
Yeah.
And
He's
the
gonna go get his
dude,
sister.
who's the guy? I don't know. I forgot.
Don't
his
ask me.
name. Duncan, do you know?
Which guy?
The guy.
that
plays
is
Alfie
the-
Allen, the actor?
Alfie Allen. He rose to
Oh,
the
the guy.
challenge.
Oh, Alfie Allen. Yeah.
He did so
Alfie.
well with that.
He totally
Yeah.
Because
looks
he
like an
totally played such a great douchebag, and also someone who's got post-traumatic stress disorder, basically, and his world's
Yeah.
been rocked. And now, just that scene with John was great.
Well, and
Yep.
throughout this whole thing, he's gotten to work with so many different actors on the show.
Oh, yeah.
he's
Yeah,
been
he's been
bounced
everywhere.
around, so it's kind of his experiences has got to be pretty freaking awesome. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what happens.
Me
in-
too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, another person that took a stand this episode was Sandor, taking a stand against the
Oh,
mountain.
his brother. Yeah,
It was
guys
almost like
remember
a
that?
prelude to a stand.
yeah.
It was
Yeah.
a stand, but what I got from that is he was saying, "I'm coming for you,"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
which,
Now it might be the death of him, but
right.
I don't know. That also seems too cliche for him to die fighting his brother, but we'll see.
Yeah,
Remember me?
I would
Yeah, you
hope
do.
that at least they would both die. If Sandor has to die, then I hope Gregor also dies.
Yeah, I think. Oh, yeah, Sandor's definitely gonna die. I think that the barrack's gonna revive him though. But yeah, it's a great quote. Remember me? Yeah, you do. You're even fucking uglier than I am now. What did they do to you? Doesn't matter. It's not how it ends for you, brother. You know who's coming for you. You've always known.
Yeah.
It's like, yes.
Yeah, that was awesome. But I mean, is his brother just like, "Ugh." I mean,
He must have seen some sort of recognition in his eyes.
yeah, I guess
You're
so.
even fucking uglier than I am now.
He seems pretty. Gregor seems pretty aware.
That's true, because he's on Cersei's,
Yeah,
she can
it's
stare
pretty
at him
wild.
and
subtle
like draw the
cues.
sword.
Although
very
it
subtle
did
cues.
confuse. I know we're jumping all over people, but you're
I know,
probably
sorry, we're
used
so
to it by now.
excited.
But it did confuse me when
The Jaime part.
Cersei seemed to motion to Gregor go ahead and kill him, and then he pulled his sword out, and then Jaime just left. What happened?
Right. I think he
Maybe
was
he-
waiting for further confirmation once Jaime challenged her.
Okay. And
I
she
mean, that's
looked
the
kind of
impression I got.
confused or like unsure, so he didn't finish the act.
Right.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
maybe he's so bound to her that he can, I don't know, maybe he knew that she wasn't sincere.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's probably
Because
too deep.
Jaime said, "I don't believe you," which to me I thought meant I don't believe you really mean it, and so maybe Gregor didn't think he really meant it either. Or
Right.
she
That's
really
what I
meant
thought
it.
too.
Yeah.
And man, that was the second time in the episode and the series as a whole that we've seen Cersei scared. When she realizes, she chases after him for a second and stops before the map, and it takes a second to sink in. But when she realizes that she just lost her brother, her beloved Jaime, she starts to break, and you can see it in her face, and her mouth like starts to hang open, and in her eyes, and she's scared. Like that was really
She
a
looked
powerful
pretty
moment.
scared when that white was snapping at her face.
Right, and that was the first time in the series we saw her scared. Twice in one episode, man. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing. And notice the other cool thing about that, the white snapping in her face, and she gets all freaked out and leans back and then realizes that it's stuck on the chain, so she kind of leans forward a little bit and is looking. But as it was running towards her, nobody got up to save
I
her.
know. Jaime kind
didn't
of
get up.
stood up a little, but he didn't really.
He looked scared too.
I mean, it's a good thing. I don't know if they measured out that chain, but it was just
Yeah.
the right length.
Yeah, I know, right? What are the
Definitely.
chances?
Wow.
Yeah, because what if it just
Craziness.
ate her? They'd be like, "Oops, we
Oh, well,
were just
she
trying
did.
to show her, but who's next in line?"
All right. Let's just all fucking get along and go kill some zombies.
Yeah,
Sweet.
that might have solved the problem right there.
Let's all bend the knee to each other.
Yep.
Okay, is it? Did you get to go, Melissa?
No,
Okay, go.
okay. So, I was just touching on the dragon. Wouldn't they have maybe thought like, oh shit, there's a dead dragon surrounded by a bunch of White Walkers? Because they know that the White Walkers, unless you burn the body, right?
Right.
That the dead can come back. I'm
They've
just
seen
surprised
zombie
that they didn't
bears,
think
yeah.
like, oh fuck.
Well, I mean, what are they gonna do about that?
Yeah, it was
Yeah, that's
down
true.
under the water.
We gotta go back.
Yeah.
Kill that dragon.
I mean,
Burn it.
we haven't heard
Send Gendry
anyone
to do it.
mention it, but that doesn't mean that they don't suspect.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, I just and I know that's probably, since it's the finale of the show, I'm sure that's a big last thing to talk about, but that whole scene was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty epic.
Yeah, man, that scene was incredible, and as a zombie lover, I just loved it. Also, as someone who was just kind of hoping that wall would fall down, the way the blue flame was perfect, I thought, and like the
Jesus.
gurgling
The sound that it made.
screeches, and even the holes in the wings.
Yeah, he's
And
already got holes.
I noticed immediately that it was a different sound for the fire when the blue flames shot out. That it was a totally different
It
sound.
was
than
almost
when
metallic.
it sounded like right when it first blasted, it almost sounded like a ray gun, like from a sci-fi movie, like pew! Like
Yeah.
crazy.
More alien sounding than natural.
It really was, yeah. And you guys think that it is fire? It's blue fire.
Yeah, I think so,
out.
because it
Yeah,
melted.
yeah,
I
wondering.
mean, I guess it could just be
Well,
some
it
kind of
cracked. It kinda just,
energetic.
like,
I don't think
blasted
it's
right through
ice.
Yeah, I don't
Right.
think so. I think it's
no,
gotta
that
be
would
fire.
just build the wall up. They'd be like, oh, man. No, now the wall is thicker.
That didn't work.
Shit.
Build
have
us
to
some
think-
steps.
Yeah,
Ice
steps or a
steps.
bridge. Ice bridge over the wall.
Like the
For
Wonder
Great
Twin
Pyramid, they're
dragon.
gonna build build a 7-degree ramp that takes up twice as much mass as the wall itself. To
yeah,
And then it was
exactly.
awesome when you see the Night King riding it. It's like, oh shit.
And
Yeah.
is it just me, or did that thing is it bigger than it used to be?
The dragon?
Yeah, because the Night King looked tiny on the back of it, and damn, all the holes in its wings, it hasn't been dead for that long.
He's only 4 foot tall, actually. We
Yeah.
He's usually standing far away, so you can't tell.
What's his name? Vladimir or something?
He's a hobbit.
But that's some backstory we don't have to get.
Right. That's the crossover, Lord of the Rings crossover.
Right.
Amelia Clark's
And
only 5'2".
it was awesome to see the army of the dead just standing there waiting with their grim zombie faces.
Yep, and right in the front row is the guitarist from Mastodon again.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I saw that
That's
online.
awesome.
That's awesome. 2 cameos. Those guys are lucky, man.
And
Sign me
then
Oh, are you serious? Did he really cameo that shit? You're
Yeah,
joking,
they were
right?
they were at the battle of at Hardhome. They were all murdered in that battle as well. The whole
What?
band. And
Oh
then,
my god, that's awesome.
so they're playing the same
Oh, I didn't
characters.
know that.
Yeah, it seems so.
Nice.
Wow, cool.
Great.
Huh.
And
We
then
need to become musicians so that we can get on the show.
I know.
Yeah, yeah. They have
all
so
it
many guest
takes.
musicians. Yeah.
And then they all come pouring through. There's massive 100,000 zombies.
My God. And man, that dragon should be an architect because he blew that wall to bits and the ground was perfectly flat.
Yes.
For that army
Yes.
Wow.
It just watching the
dragon.
wall come down. I just keep thinking that bubble wrap. I mean, it's been there for thousands of years in continuity, but I think right, but
It's Chekhov's wall, absolutely.
but for 7 years for us. And so it's just another sign of how much this show is coming to a close and things are changing and everything.
Yeah. I think I've been predicting for 2 years that the wall would fall in the season 7 finale specifically.
Oh, really?
It just makes sense narratively. Yeah.
Yeah. I just thought of it, I don't know, probably this season at some point. I was like having a realization, there's probably going to be a zombie dragon and that wall's probably going to fall.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell.
Okay, my turn. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about my emotional journey through this episode because it kept having me thinking. It kept having me thinking something, and then just shifting under my feet my expectations and perceptions. And I think for the most part,
So
that was
cool.
really surprising and awesome. First off, I was worried for Tyrion going into the lion's den, so to speak. And seeing,
Yeah,
it
wow,
just
pun
felt
intended.
so dangerous to see all these main characters who hate each other in the same spot. It was so tense. In fact, I've been able to kind of look at this show somewhat removed, and I don't want the characters to come to harm, but I'm also like, but it would be a great story dramatically. But during this scene, I'm like, oh, I hope no one dies. Like, oh my God,
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
Cersei finally accepts the truce, and I believed it because at first I was like, you can't trust anything she says, but they did such a good job of having her, when Jon admits that he bent the knee to Daenerys, she storms off, and then it took Tyrion to go talk to her to bring her around. And then she gave that declaration, all right, I'll fight for you in the north, and I hope you remember I did this, but you probably won't. I kind of believed it for a second. And
I did. I was really surprised.
And I almost felt like, yeah, fuck yeah, Cersei. Like the right music was playing and everything. I'm like,
Triumphant music.
yeah. And then I was like, well, the episode's only halfway over, so where is the drama going to come if everybody's... And then it cut right to Littlefinger, and I'm like, oh, okay, he's the drama. He's the one that could fuck all this up now that everybody's on the same page. He's the
Right.
one that's going to fuck it up. And then, they just keep steering you in this direction that Sansa is about to kill Arya or send her away or something, and then they just turn it around and point the finger at Littlefinger.
I was totally duped by that too.
Yeah. And
I
it's like,
actually
what?
thought, I was like, oh, come on. I was like, Sansa, you were just like getting like, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, and it was a big save for Game of Thrones as well, because if they actually went that way, it would have been a huge plot hole, because all they have to do is talk to Bran and just talk a little bit.
Right.
And they
as a
all did
family.
talk, and that's such a satisfying sequence of them just laying out all Littlefinger's lies and crimes
Right.
from over the season was from information from Sansa mostly and Bran too, which is great. I'm a little bit, I think last episode when Arya came in and acted like a little psycho, I feel like that's a little bit on the manipulative side to get us believing this, so that then they could surprise us with Sansa and Arya. Because I didn't totally believe Arya would go that far off the deep end.
Right.
Yeah,
But-
there was some interesting theories about that she was playing the game of faces, like lying herself while she was giving that monologue. Like everything that she said was twisted in some way to kind of give Sansa a clue. Handing her the dagger.
Maybe you're right. I would love to see some evidence of that in the show. To me, it felt like the writers were going, okay, well, we need to make everyone believe that this is happening so we can surprise them with this.
Oh yeah, I can see that too.
But
Totally.
I just loved that scene with Littlefinger so much because it's he's the one character I've been wanting to really get what he deserves in this whole series, that I want to play the clip, and it's about 3 minutes, but I really want to, I think you guys are going to enjoy it. So here it is.
Oh, they're confused.
Which charges confuse you? Let's start with the simplest one. You murdered our aunt, Lysa Arryn. You pushed her through the moon door and watched her fall. Do you deny it?
I did it to protect you.
You did it to take power in the Vale. Earlier, you conspired to murder John Arryn. You gave Lysa tears of lease to poison him. Do you deny it?
Whatever your aunt might have told you, she was a troubled woman. She imagined enemies everywhere.
You had Aunt Lysa send a letter to our parents telling them it was the Lannisters who murdered John Arryn, when really it was you. The conflict between the Starks and the Lannisters, it was you who started it. Do you deny it?
I know of no such letter.
You conspired with Cersei Lannister and Joffrey Baratheon to betray our father, Ned Stark. Thanks to your treachery, he was imprisoned and later executed on false charges of treason. Do you deny it?
I deny it. None of you were there to see what happened. None of you
Even
knows the truth.
You held a knife to his throat. You said, I did warn you not to trust me.
You told our mother this knife belonged to Tyrion Lannister. But that was another one of your lies. It was yours.
Lady Sansa, I have known you since you were a girl. I've protected you.
Protected me by selling me to the Boltons.
Ugh.
If we could speak alone, I can explain everything.
Sometimes when I'm trying to understand a person's motives, I play a little game. I assume the worst. What's the worst reason you have for turning me against my sister? That's what you do, isn't it? That's what you've always done. Turn family against family, turn sister against sister. That's what you did to our mother and Aunt Lysa, and that's what you tried to do to us.
Sansa, please.
I'm a slow learner. It's true. But I learn.
Give me a chance to defend myself. I deserve that. I am Lord Protector of the Vale, and I command you to escort me safely back to the Eyrie. I think not. Sansa, I beg you. I loved your mother since the time I was a boy.
And yet you betrayed her.
I loved you. More than anyone.
And yet you betrayed me. When you brought me back to Winterfell, you told me there's no justice in the world, not unless we make it. Thank you for all your many lessons, Lord Baelish. I will never forget them.
Oh boy. Ew.
Oh man, that was awesome.
He did such
So
a good
cool.
job, Aiden.
Aidan Gillen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
good. It was so good to see him just break down, crying and begging.
I was wondering if those were real tears or crocodile tears, because he was like, I loved your mother since the time I was a boy, I loved you more than anyone, and his voice kind of cracks, and she's like, and yet you betrayed me, and then the camera looks back at his face, and he sort of looks more collected, like, oh, fuck, that didn't work.
I think it's both. I think he really did have a twisted love for both of them, Sansa and Catelyn.
Oh, definitely.
And
no
I
question about
think
that.
he realized he was out of options and he's fucked. So I don't think it was completely devoid of emotion, but it could have been, right? Because he's a sociopath.
Right. I think it was a mixture of him feeling bad for himself, but then him trying to manipulate her with using that. Like, and the other really cool thing I liked about this part here is that, we had the clue earlier in the season. Baelish had the clue when Bran said to him, "Chaos is a ladder." And he was like, "What the fuck?" Then this time, the charges that she lists, that Sansa lists, she says, 1, you murdered my aunt, you pushed her through the moon door.
She knew about that.
She knew about that one. There's no question. Number 2, you gave Lysa tears of Lys to poison Jon Arryn. And he's like, you can see him looking a little confused because Lysa had mentioned this right before he pushed her through the moon door, but she didn't say the specific poison. She was just kind of like, you gave me the drops and I put them in Jon Arryn's drink. I love you. I'd do anything for you. So he was like, kind of like, okay, well, anything your aunt may have told you, she was kind of paranoid and delusional. And then she mentions the letter and he's like, no fucking way they know about this letter. Like, Catelyn had gotten it, read it aloud to Ned, and then destroyed it immediately. So that's not something they would have talked with their kids about. And so there's no way they knew that. And then, when she accuses him of betraying Ned, and he's like, I deny it. None of you were there to see what happened. None of you knows the truth. And Bran's like, you held a knife to his throat. And he turns around like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
How does Bran know this? You said, I did warn you not to trust me. Exact quote. And he's like, fuck.
That's my favorite part of the whole scene is Bran. And Bran, I already loved him, but I think he just became my favorite character. I don't know why for sure. I guess
Bran did?
I hate when people bullshit, and I want to get to the truth. Yeah. That's one reason why I like podcasting. You get to the truth of the matter with something, and sometimes there isn't an objective truth, but still, Bran cuts through all that. And I love him for it, even though he's kind of spacey right now. I still, I just love what, and also because when we first met him, he was an explorer and he ran all around the castle and climbed walls, and now he can explore anywhere he wants. He can go anywhere in the world.
Oh
past
wow,
the
that's
future.
such a great parallel. That's
so
cool, man.
Just love that.
Wow.
Yeah, I was kind of waiting too, because me and my friend Jenny, who I always watch this show with, she should be on our podcast.
Yeah, she should.
She should.
Totally.
We were like, come on, Brant. Like, I'm really dropping the F-bombs tonight because this show just brought it out of me. But
it's
we're like, where the
podcast.
fuck is Bran?
Yeah.
Like, when is Bran gonna fucking speak up? And then that there was, that scene. There was and then there was another.
Yeah, the other
Bran.
one where,
there was some good Bran.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah,
I loved the transition from knowledge and accusations that they can immediately back up that Baelish is aware that they know about, to like the transition to the obscure, where he's like, there's no way they know this, but then they know it.
And it was also from recent to longer ago, and that final one is the one that I've always felt, oh yeah, this is his ultimate betrayal. He's the one basically that got Ned Stark's head chopped off in season 1.
I still miss Ned to this day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just the whole public element of it, that he's publicly being exposed for all the bullshit that he's pulled over so much time.
Mm-hmm. Perfect way for him to die is to
absolutely
have this all spelled out and then just have his throat slit immediately after.
Although, now this sounds crazy, you guys, but I'm gonna kind of miss him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, me too. I love Baelish.
And I feel, and I do feel like
really?
I wanted him to be a little more successful before he died.
Right.
But it was still also extremely satisfying. But we were saying something, Duncan.
Great scene. Oh yeah, I just I like you were saying, I wish he was sort of more of an end game player. Like he was more successful. That he could have been used this season even a little better and more potently. Yeah. But I just love the whole public exposure element of it. That he's just exposed for everybody as the scum he is. Oh, but the other thing I was going to say that I remember now is that they didn't mention his role in the plot to kill Joffrey. Interestingly. I mean, it's a different kingship and whatnot.
Yeah, they don't
that
care.
would have been a good thing.
They're like, well, you did
like,
one good thing.
Yeah, we forgive you for one thing before we slit your throat. Otherwise, everything else was really bad.
Yeah, totally.
Just as far as emotional journey goes, so then I'm like, okay, so Littlefinger's going to be the agent of chaos in this episode. Nope, turns out that this is his end.
More resolution.
It was Cersei betraying them. And I'm like, oh, I should have known. And it's perfect. Like, I was happy to see that. And I think she actually kind of has a point, like, well, let them deal with it. And it's, what does she have to gain? I mean, she, if she was heroic, she'd be like, well, maybe my forces will be what makes the difference. But she's being pragmatic and devious. Like, that's her. So,
oh, yeah, that's totally her.
It'd be more interesting to see what happens next season with that added wrinkle.
I liked how the foreshadowing of that too, as well, with Tyrion saying, you ever think about learning to lie just a little bit to Jon, and then having the big lie with Cersei, where she, there is a lie, and it was sort of foreshadowed it.
And then I looked back and I'm like, well, I think maybe Cersei wanted Tyrion to know that she was pregnant. She was totally telegraphing it so that he would believe that she was on board. So that makes me doubt whether she actually is pregnant again. I thought for a second she was, but yeah.
Right, good point. Yeah, because she, obviously didn't drink the wine. She's like caressing her belly.
Yeah.
She definitely wants people to think she's pregnant.
She's got no one. It's funny. She's like, I'm doing this to protect my family. And you're like, there's no one fucking left. You're alone, bitch. Everybody hates you. They're only doing things because they're scared of you. Jamie's like, I don't know.
Out,
she keeps, I'm like,
both of her brothers told her to kill them in one episode.
Yes, just kill me. I know. And I'm like, oh my God. Between her and the goddamn mountain, I'm like, all right, enough is enough. Like, I was intrigued by Cersei and well, anyways, it's another topic.
No, you can talk about it. What do you mean?
Oh, well, I'm just like, I mean, I've always been, I've never loved her or liked her, and I've been kind of like, ooh, I can't wait to see how this bitch is going to go down. But this episode was just like, oh my God. Like, it's just like she has reached like
just the worst.
Just the worst of the, and she's like all alone now. She's just like, I'm not going to go fight for them. She's being, and you're like, do you not see the big picture?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She's hitting new lows when Jamie leaves.
Yes, which was amazing. The fact that Jamie walked off into the, I thank the Lord that
Did you guys think he was going to die there?
I did. Because Littlefinger died, it made me believe Jamie might be next.
And I thought because she didn't kill Tyrion that she was going to snap and kill Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I was coming to terms with Jamie's death there. I was like, wow, this is how Jamie Lannister dies. Like,
yeah,
wow.
I was too. And then when it didn't happen, it was a little bit like, okay, they both got away.
Yeah.
Which is good because we want them in the next season.
We do. I mean, part of me, I'm like, one of the reasons why I fell for Game of Thrones, even though it was bittersweet, is that it was such a mean show. They killed off Ned. They killed off Robb, who we both thought were the main characters. They killed Drogo and Dany's baby, Catelyn. They burned Shireen. They showed all these rapes, which is horrible. Theon being tortured for a whole season.
Heads being popped.
If this episode was in like one of the first 5 seasons, I feel like Theon would have been beaten up by that other guy and humiliated. And when Tyrion told Cersei to go ahead and kill him, she would have done it.
Yeah.
And also that, Sansa would have actually excommunicated Arya or killed her. Yeah, if it was one of those first 4 or 5 seasons, I feel like at least 1 or 2 of those things would happen.
And that's been like one of my minor criticisms about the show. At least last week, I felt like after Eastwatch, I was like, everybody feels like a little bit too safe at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that they're just, throwing us a little bone right now so they can fucking kill us emotionally next season.
You think so?
Kill everybody.
I don't know. I sort of think that they feel like, well, we're done with that part now. It's time for the show to become more satisfying and emotionally and heroic. I mean, I know that there will be deaths, but I doubt they'll devastate us like they did in the earlier seasons.
I wonder.
I'm expecting devastation. Sorry, Melly, what are you wondering about?
Well, no, I'm with you. I think next season we're gonna lose people who we really hate, and we're like, yeah, and then we're also gonna have the oh no,
they're gonna finally bring back Ghost, and they're gonna kill him.
I know.
Slowly over the course of 6 episodes.
Yeah, I mean, Jon's story apparently mirrors the myth of Mithra, the god Mithra, who had a white bull and was forced to sacrifice his white bull or something like that. So it doesn't play out well.
Yeah,
theoretically for Ghost.
They'll bring back hot pie or whatever his name is.
Yeah,
They'll just
poke
kill
his
him
eyes
for no good
out.
reason.
Hot pie.
He's like, "Would you like a pie?" And they're like, "Yeah," and just kill him. They're gonna fuck us up.
I hate pie.
Okay, let's get moving. What's your number 2, Duncan?
My number 2 is Death of Littlefinger, which we covered pretty well right there. So you go ahead.
Good one.
Or whoever's
Melissa.
next, Melly. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with in that scene. It's funny. This is totally like just cheesy, and this is like not deep at all. But when Tyrion is in there with Cersei in the lion's den, if you will, and he gives his speech, and then he walks over to the wine and he starts chugging the wine. I was like, oh my god, that's totally how I drink wine while watching Game of Thrones.
He gave some to
Just get
her.
so
That was
fucking
nice.
out.
That
I'm
was
like,
a
oh,
meta
I
moment for
filled
the
a bottle.
fans.
Yes, and he did. No, that whole. I mean, even though it was like that whole scene was very. But that was just like a little. I thought it was funny because when I saw that, there were a lot of those moments in this particular finale where, I noticed just little things like that were amusing amidst all this like crazy darkness.
Mm-hmm. And this whole season's been filled with moments like that, which are great. Little like either knowing winks to the audience or a little bit of lightness and funniness and stuff.
Right. Yeah. And the
definitely.
Brienne. Yeah. I mean, you already mentioned that, but Brienne finally just being, oh fuck loyalty, just like, and I was like, thank fucking God, like.
Or when Tyrion said to Jon, and when he was like justifying being honorable and telling the truth about his allegiances, Tyrion's like, that is indeed a problem. The more immediate problem is that we're fucked.
Right. Yeah. Well, and there was the moment also with Samwell, like asking Bran, like, oh, what happened to you on the other side of the. And he's like, I became the three-eyed raven on this like crazy. And he's like, and like just his reaction alone.
I just that means.
I know.
He kind of smiled too.
Goes, he goes. Jon and Dany are coming from King's Landing with the dragon. Oh, you saw that in a vision? And then he just like shows the piece of paper that it's written down on.
Right. Yeah. So there were still
hilarious.
a few of those moments in there, and Samwell. Oh my God! I just want to put him in my pocket and carry him around with me. I love his character. His character is it's kind of like a nice breath of fresh air amidst so much heaviness. So yeah, there were just some scenes in there that I did find moments to like kind of. Oh, yeah, because it was pretty harsh. I mean, when the show ended, it was like, oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
It was a lot to take in.
I think Sam's going to live, I predict, because
forever.
It would just be really stupid to kill him off. Like, why would the show do that?
I would maybe want to turn off my TV. That would be like I mean, it would have to be some kind of like amazing, glorious way for him to die, but
I'd
be pissed.
I guess I could see that, yeah.
I'd be pissed.
The dialogue in this episode is so good, man.
He's gonna be the one that writes the story. He's gonna be the one.
Yeah,
that,
some
like,
people may think so.
Narrates and tells the legend of
he and Bran
his
together.
time. Yes, and the three-eyed raven.
Can
right.
fill in all the blanks. Well, my number 2 is balls, or the lack thereof. Because there's a lot with characters not being able to have children or sexual desire. And it was funny because the very first scene is all the Unsullied in formation. And I was thinking to myself, watching that, wow, you'd think they'd be fighting for the promise of something, not just their loyalty to the queen, but what is she promising them? And just as I was thinking that, Bronn's saying he wouldn't fight if he didn't have a cock.
There was a lot of cock talk.
Yeah.
And your brother's chosen to side with the cockless.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm like, it's interesting to think how your perspective would change if you had no sexual desire. Then suddenly, there would be other things. Because sexual desire, whether we know it or not, really motivates a lot of what people do. Why they exercise and make themselves look good and dress nice and all of this. And if you don't have that, then there's other things. I mean, that's, you could have long, in-depth discussions about that, but it's just something to think about. Like with Theon, he doesn't have his parts anymore either. And
today his weakness was turned into his strength.
Yeah, that's his superpower. But now he's, what's motivating him is just being honorable, having integrity and helping his sister. And
so good to see that.
That scene was like, he reminded me of Rocky Balboa, just like he's like a piece of iron. That's what Drago said. And just took such a beating. And then
like Muhammad Ali
there's
in
also,
Rumble
this
in
is
the
sort of
Jungle.
related, but that Dany thinks she can't procreate. And so
Right.
how that affects her, she still has sexual desire, but she places so much more importance on the dragons as being her children, I think in part because she thinks she can't have regular children. And then at one point she said a dragon is not a slave. And I think that helps explain why it was so important for her to free slaves. I didn't make that connection before, but there was the whole thing about how the dragons, when they were in that dragon pit, which is where they had the meeting at the beginning of this episode, it used to be a dome, and the Targaryens kept their dragons there, but they shrunk down to the size of dogs because it just wasn't, they felt like they were in captive and they couldn't thrive there.
It wasn't necessarily like they shrunk, but every generation got smaller.
Yeah,
like they didn't grow as big. Yeah.
So,
just to clarify for the listeners, I know you understand it.
I don't know if I had that clarified myself, but it makes sense.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so thank you.
You're welcome.
But I don't know. I just thought it was pretty cool to look at all the different ways that these people who can't procreate, how it affects their lives and their perspectives and things like that. There was a few different echoes of that in this episode.
All sorts of hints for, Dany being able to procreate as well. Like that part where she says, "I can't have children," and Jon says, "Who told you that?" And she says, "The witch who murdered my husband."
Yeah, duh. The one who like fucking,
it's like, has it occurred to you that she might not be a reliable source of information?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Dany's pregnant now.
Yeah.
You mean before having the sex with the Johns? Or...
No, usually it's after the sex.
Well, she had the
Immaculate
sex with that other guy. The one I can't remember the fucking name. The one that's back.
No,
Thank you.
No, I meant after. I think now she's pregnant with Jon's baby.
Well, okay, so here's a couple of funny things. Me and my friend kept joking that when is Jon Snow gonna bend the wiener? Bend your wiener. But Tyrion was out in the hallway and he looked kind of bummed. What do you guys think that was all about? Is he bummed, or was he just like, this is a mistake?
Good question. There's all kinds of theories going around that he's conspiring with Cersei, and I don't think that's true. There's no way that he's doing that. I think that he's attracted to Daenerys himself, and so he's a little bummed out. But I think that he also is worried that love coming into play at this time could affect their level-headed strategic minds the way it did with Robb Stark.
I mean, look at this episode. We see something we already kind of knew, but we just see it laid out that Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark were in love with each other. And that was, the union that brought Jon into the world, but it also was the union that brought forth Robert's Rebellion and got a shitload of people killed and just caused so much war, including both of them.
Great point.
Yeah, so, I mean, and that's the backdrop with which all this is happening when we're having the revelation of Jon's parentage, and then you see Jon. It's a little weird because it's like reminding you that he's with his aunt right now. But I think that was maybe, I don't know either, but I think maybe that was part of like Tyrion knows that this could actually complicate things, and I felt the same way. I'm like, oh man, I've been wanting to see them together for a long time, but now I'm realizing that it's happening, that it's probably going to end in some kind of tragedy.
Yeah, and even Jon said like there's no time for it a couple episodes ago,
I love though when he showed up at the door and there's a little pause.
Yeah, that was another person taking a stand. He's like, I'm taking it right now.
But there was a pause there, and I'm like, yeah, I know that pause. You're like, okay, am I gonna do it? I'm gonna do it. Come on.
Yeah, this is it. If I go in the room, this is happening. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
But what do you guys think of that
too.
scene, since we're talking about it?
Well, ass. I'll just let me speak for the ladies and a person who appreciates a good ass. Any lover of Jon Snow. He's got a good butt.
My theory is that Kit Harington, that George Martin told him about this early on, and he's been working on his glutes for 7 years.
He's been doing squats. He does like 2,000 squats a day. You see him walking down the streets of London, and he's just lunging.
He's got
Drop it, give me 6 million. No.
I mean, it was a nice butt.
Yeah.
And
back,
I mean,
too.
And back.
Yeah.
I didn't even see it. I was just trying to get a glimpse of her.
No, she's not into that anymore, I guess.
I know.
Yeah,
I was like, which parts of her are
you've
real,
seen
which
me,
parts
I'm
of
done.
her are not.
You saw some, though.
Yes.
That's the thing, though. I'm wondering if that was a double, like Cersei had in her shame walk.
I don't think so,
no.
because
she does
Danny-
have a body double. I've looked that up online randomly enough.
Well, Emilia Clarke said she was done with that, but then was it last season when she was in the Dothraki widows conclave or whatever?
The fire.
Dosh
And she
Colleen.
came out. That was her. She decided this scene is
really
makes enough sense that I'm going to go ahead and do this again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow,
Duncan's
good
like
for her.
rewinding it. Wait, what scene was
Hey,
that?
how'd you know that?
So
hear me
I think
away.
this was her too.
Yeah, no, it was, I mean, I wasn't shocked. You could feel the tension. They really built the tension in the last 2 episodes. You're like, oh yeah, this is definitely going to happen.
Oh yeah, that thing's not bending anytime it's near Daenerys.
Ben the wiener. Well, angle the wiener. I don't know. Never mind. We're getting dirty. We are getting dirty.
Where were we here? That was my number 2. So, Duncan, what's your number 1?
My number 1 is the Sam Bran duo and ensuing revelation or revelations. I think that Sam is like one of the smartest, most read dudes in the books, or in the story. Bran is like the all-knowing Bran guy now, and the combination of having them both together is just astronomically powerful potentially.
And I liked that Bran didn't know everything, that it took Sam to help him put it all together.
Right. And that could be hinting at the power of their teamwork in the future. But it was great. It's like, oh, did the Three-Eyed
non-warriors.
Raven just get fact-checked by Sam Tarly?
I was kind of like, how did he not? And then he's like, can you see that? And then he like went into it and he's like, oh
yes,
yeah, I can. Yeah.
Yeah, like the power that they can both, like, Sam has read so much that he'll be able to direct Bran's vision and tell him, oh, look here, find this out, because I know something about this that could be useful. Explore around there a little bit. Just the potential that these two could have together is just fascinating to me. I really was excited to see them come together and see something great already happen as a result. Just imagine what could be possible with the two of them.
Yeah. I
love
like that
scene.
duo.
Me too. And Sam was just so funny. Like, he walks into the room and says, how, like, what did he say? Oh, I didn't think you'd remember me. And he's like, I remember everything now. And he just kind of like, like smiles, that's cool. Yeah,
He's
like
very
he said, like,
accepting.
yeah. He was just kind of playing it off like, okay, Bran, that's kind of weird. And then, he's like, what happened to you beyond the wall? And he's like, I became the Three-Eyed Raven. And he's like, oh, I don't know what that means. Like, what the fuck?
But he's super accepting. He's not like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's just like, oh, sweet. All right.
He's
Well,
like,
what does that
like,
do?
Yeah, he wants people to believe him when he talks about White Walkers, so he's not going to just brush everything off immediately as well. But just this combo, I never expected it before, for them to be hanging out and sharing info and like coming up with these massive revelations. And like I said, I just think the possibilities are endless with these two. They could be the tide turn. It's just these two people getting together. And there's people speculating about Sam being the character that writes A Song of Ice and Fire, the books, and I think it was foreshadowed by him telling Archmaester Ebros, like, well, the title's kind of dry, maybe come up with something more poetic for the chronicle of the stories of the wars following the Robert's Rebellion,
like
whatever.
A Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah, that's a very poetic title, so people have been speculating that it would be Sam that writes it, and I've been poo-pooing the idea because all the chapters of the book are written from characters' points of view. And so there's a lot of information that only those specific characters.
Bran Stark.
Right, exactly. With the help of Bran, they could get in people's heads potentially, since the Three-Eyed Raven can visit people in dreams and whatnot. they might be able to learn this info that these characters could only know themselves. And being such a fascinating story about something so important as the war and the power struggle that divided the kingdoms at the time when they most needed to be connected, when this threat of the death from the north is encroaching and proceeding towards them, it makes sense that these two together would have the capacity to potentially write the books A Song of Ice and Fire. Although I'm not 100% on it, and I hope it's not the case, honestly. But
I wish I had that power, because I feel like I'm doing that already with my iPad all day, just surfing the net, that you could kind of expand that into going into people's consciousnesses and stuff.
That's the future.
Well, if I ever get a glass candle, I'll send it your way so you can try.
I thought it was notable that Bran knows the wall has fallen, because that scene opened with him warging into, I think, the crows.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
very, very
he
interesting.
Can warn everybody. Run!
Yeah. Well, and I can just kind of touch for my
number one.
My number one. That scene, and with him, telling Samwell who Jon Snow really is, and them figuring it out. Like, what's going to happen when that's found out, especially between Jon and Daenerys, and I mean,
it was particularly pointed that Bran said he's the true heir.
Right.
Like,
oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what does that mean? Like, does that mean that he has some type of negative feelings about Daenerys?
Who?
I mean,
Bran?
Bran? That,
no,
like,
I think
really
it means that
out.
It's the male.
He's the rightful.
By tradition, would be the rightful heir, right?
Right.
Oh yeah, definitely. At its surface, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think.
I was wondering.
My feeling is Bran is kind of beyond that kind of thing now. He's more like Spock.
Yeah, he's totally like, Spock. Yeah, exactly.
He's not like driven by.
He's not emotional.
He's
about
petty emotions. Yeah.
Yeah.
If he busts out the Vulcan death grip, I'm gonna be like, wow, they were right.
He might. I wonder. That's one of the things. I mean, I guess with me, I'm just pondering next season. A couple of the dire wolves gonna return. And what's gonna happen when Jon Snow?
It can't be that. I would think that Jon and Daenerys will become king and queen together and raise their happy children. I just don't think that's going to happen.
Right.
I want it to at this point, but
do you think she's so power hungry? Because she's kind of also displayed some times and moments in this last season of being a little more obsessive about power.
Yes, and killing, quick to kill. And I loved it that Cersei pointed that out to Tyrion, and he kind of backpedaled a little bit. Well, she knows, and that's why she has me there. I mean, it's kind of true, but it also makes you think.
Yeah.
Jon has no interest in ruling either, though.
That's true.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like,
to be king.
He already, he could abdicate just the same way Bran abdicated being Lord of Winterfell. I could see Jon saying, "No, you take it. It's fine." He already respects her.
That would make an interesting parallel to a character that was mentioned briefly in the series before. When Stannis visited the Wall, they said he was the first king to visit the Wall since Jaehaerys the First, the Conciliator, who came up there at one point, and his wife Queen Alysanne had come as well, and they ended up having a quarrel in their marriage because Jaehaerys ended up wanting to bypass their granddaughter Rhaenys in the line of succession and pass the crown to their other son Balon, who was further down in the line. Their eldest son was dead, and it should have gone to their granddaughter. And Alysanne was really super pissed about that. So in that case, it was a female being bypassed for a male. And last week, we saw Dany standing on top of the wall, which sort of sent images of Queen Alysanne into my mind. And if Jon is bypassed in the line of succession, the grandson of the previous king and the Mad King, and the crown moves to Dany, his eldest surviving daughter, then it would be like a complete reversal of what happened with Alysanne and her son and granddaughter, and it would be kind of a poetic little cool thing to happen.
I speculate that if Jon found this out right now, he might say, no, I don't want to be the king, you be the queen. But something will happen where he'll start looking at her differently, and it'll motivate him to think that people would be better off if he was king. That's my wild guess.
And having grown up a bastard and never felt like he was entitled to anything, learning the truth maybe could spark something in his mind, would be like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to take it, it's mine.
Right. I hope he stays, because when he told the truth about having bent the knee to her, I was kind of the same, like, oh, did you have to say that? But as the episode went on, I'm just like, oh man, it was good he did that. I mean, I hope it doesn't turn out to bite him in the ass. We still don't really know. Like,
I thought it was good too.
Maybe if he had capitulated to Cersei and lied, that she would have genuinely helped because she would have felt less threatened, but I doubt it.
Yeah. Going back to the idea of them all ending up ruling together as a happy family and whatnot, I don't foresee necessarily too many issues coming from the fact that he's the heir, because based on how he has shown no interest in ruling, and he's been, elevated against his, not against his will, but without his want, to Lord Commander position and then to King in the North, I feel like there won't be too much of a conflict between Jon and Daenerys. But before it can really come to a head, I feel like the Jaime scene where he tried to kill Daenerys was foreshadowing Jon in a Hail Mary attempt trying to kill the Night King, and killing him to end the war, but dying in the process. And that will create the bittersweet ending that he's fallen in love with Daenerys, and she's pregnant, and they finally both are getting what they've always wanted, the king and queenship, the love that they've desired. Jon is no longer a bastard, but his death and the sacrifice of his life and everything that he's ever wanted to end the war will be like what will make the ending bittersweet in my prediction.
Oh,
I don't think so, because I think, I could see that happening, but I feel like the showrunners of the show have shown they can't pass up the opportunity for conflict. Yeah, and even with this sort of fake conflict between Arya and Sansa, I just feel like they've been telegraphing that this is gonna be an issue between Dany and Jon, but we'll see.
Well, yeah. Some of the news I have may foreshadow some of that.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so mine is, I feel like more than usual this episode, the specter of Ned Stark and the honor of Ned Stark was brought up.
Yes.
Like when Jon told Cersei he'd already pledged himself to Dany, just before that, Cersei said, I know Ned Stark will be true to his word. And
Ned Stark's son.
Ned Stark's son. Yeah, sorry. And that I think was put there to remind us, because when we think of Ned Stark being honest, we think of him dying because of it and being too honest to a fault, And so it's a little bit like, he was honorable, but should you do that? And then I love that Jon even acknowledged that later on. I know you guys all think that because like my father, and that was what did him in or whatever. But like I said, I ended up feeling like that was good, and I respect Jon so much, and I hope it works out for him.
Me too. I thought it would have been so funny. Jon doesn't know he's not Ned's kid yet, but if that moment he was like, well, I'm not Ned Stark's son, Dracarys, and Cersei
right.
gets lit up.
Things are different now. But that's interesting, because then, with the scene with Theon, and he told Theon, hey, you're Stark and a Greyjoy, and Ned,
beautiful.
Ned is a part of you. And that helped push Theon to feel like he had the inner resources to do the right thing. And I think, that's equally applicable to Jon, even though he's not his son. Ned is such a huge part of him. So hopefully
it was funny.
He wouldn't lose that.
It's like, you don't have to choose. You're a Greyjoy and you're a Stark. And with Jon, it's like, he's a Targaryen and a Stark,
I
same
can't
position.
wait for that reaction.
I know.
I can't wait. I'm hoping it doesn't drag out, and I don't know. I'd be happy on the first episode.
I meant to go into this podcast just referring to him as Aegon the whole time. I've screwed up.
The last one is just when Arya said she missed her dad, and I love that, because we need some human moments from Arya now, and that was one of them. And
that was such a great quote too. You remember the quote they brought up? Let's see. In the winter we must protect ourselves, look after one another, and she says, "Father," and continues the quote, "When the snows fall and the white winds blow, the lone wolf survives, or the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives."
Yeah, if it said the lone wolf survives but the pack dies, it wouldn't have it quite the same.
I typed it wrong, so I was reading it. And I was like, "Fuck."
Yeah, that was so nice. And then I loved also that Sansa said, "You're the strongest person I know," and she's like, "That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me." Well,
that might be the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
Yeah, and then she's like, "Well, you're still very strange and annoying," which I think she's always felt about Arya, but maybe a little more so
Definitely.
now.
Oh yeah, she's a faceless man. Do you even know what that means, Peter?
So, do you think they're going to use Arya's going to use Peter's face? I don't think so.
Oh, that'd be so cool if she did though.
I think there's too little time in the series to really. Maybe
that.
Yeah.
Who would she even use it on? Who would be the
Cersei,
target?
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe Cersei.
Just to get close to her.
Yeah. I don't know.
Fucking Cersei.
Man,
I literally wrote in my notes like, fucking Cersei.
I like that she said the monsters are real, the White Walkers, the dragons, the Dothraki screamers. It's like she just puts all those together into one bucket.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. The foreign scum.
Right.
There's another great quote with when Tyrion and Sandor are talking, and Sandor says, "Oh, it seems like there's a Lannister cunt behind every plot," and Tyrion says, "But and a Clegane cunt to help carry it out."
That's great. And he's like,
and that was another funny moment. That was
yeah.
And
he's basically like, "Am I gonna die here?" He said that to Tyrion.
I left this shit city so I wouldn't die in it. Am I gonna die in this shit city?
And then they made him lug the White Walker in there by himself. I'm like, well, that's dramatic.
Nobody even helped him put it down.
No.
He's
like when he
struggling
just
to get
tapped on the
stage.
box while it was still in storage.
Yeah. That was great.
Yeah.
And he is scared of those things, man. Like he's not like super.
It looked great.
super
It was
pumped
like
about
like a Sam Raimi Evil Dead kind of moment.
Oh, nice.
Popped out.
Yeah, that was amazing. Wow. Like the gnashing and just the ferocity of it running towards Cersei at full steam, and then the chain catching it. And yeah, it was just great.
We had Cersei's first meeting with Daenerys, and one thing I loved about that is she's like, "We waited for you," and she apologized. Oh, my apologies. So classy.
I think this was my only criticism about this episode was that Dany seemed kind of weak in this scene, because you've got the King in the North talking up a storm, you've got Cersei talking up a storm, and Dany never really said much of anything.
Maybe on
Tyrion talk for her.
Kind of like he was like, he kind of gave her a speech. I don't know if it was this episode or the last one. I got them kind of run into each other, but he was basically saying you can be short tempered. And she's like, I am not. And so maybe she was kind of like holding her shit in, because if she said anything.
Did you think she seemed weak?
Well, Melissa? I was a little bit. I too thought kind of what Duncan was saying, but then I was like, well, maybe she's doing that because if she opens her mouth, it's like, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
I just thought she felt so strong that she didn't need to say anything. That's kind of what I read.
That's like my first watch, I didn't notice it at all. My second watch, I was like, wow, Cersei's doing a lot of talking and Dany's not doing any talking. And then at one point they're looking at each other and Cersei says something and Dany just averts eye contact and looks away from her. And I was like, oh man, you broke eye contact?
Well, sometimes the person who says the least in the conversation has the most power. And
wise men listen and laugh while fools talk.
Well, and I would have told, just personally, I would have had my dragons, but then I guess that's not fun. It's like Lord of the Rings. Like, why didn't the eagles just fly Frodo to Mount Doom? Like, just have the fucking dragon sitting there. The first time Cersei does something sassy and annoying, just like, burn her. Nobody's going to fuck with you on that,
Yeah, they should just use those dragons as sneak attacks on the White Walkers, too. Like, right when they're least expecting it, just have the dragons fly in. Like, they were totally expecting the dragons at that one scene because they were already having a fight. And then, everybody was on guard and ready for battle, and all of a sudden the dragons fly up. So of course they have the spears and shit already. They should just
how do
totally,
we know they even
sneak.
know about the dragon? I guess because you think they're kind of green seeing. I guess they are. Yeah. One of my small criticisms is Cersei kept saying like, "Why isn't she with them? Where is she?"
Obviously,
and
she's showing up
let's
with
have
dragons.
the meeting in the dragon pit. But we don't suspect that she's going to show up with their dragons and show a force. That seems a little weird.
Honestly, I'm surprised Cersei was willing to meet at all, because I would have expected to be roasted on site.
I always think that when you hear like leaders of warring countries meet up, I'm like, can they do that? Like, because I remember when we used to play Assassin, where we would have squirt guns and you would get the person that you were supposed to kill, and then when you killed them or shot them, then you would have to get their person, and then the last person alive would get all the money in the pot. We used to play that when I worked at this movie theater.
That's awesome.
It was awesome. And there was a time when I was next to somebody and they're like, let's call it, I need to call a timeout. I need to talk to you. And then they rolled down their window and I just shot them in the face. But then, actually I did. They were like, dude, it was a timeout. And I'm like, okay. Anyway.
I never agreed to that timeout.
Anything else?
So much stuff.
We didn't cover.
I have like 10 pages.
Euron.
I know.
I thought it was
Euron went back to.
Yeah. I mean, what was their plan? Like Euron, did they know they were going to see a zombie? Because did Cersei say, okay, when you see a zombie, pretend to be so scared that you're going to run away? But they didn't know they were going to see a zombie. So how did they plan that out?
Not sure. I think that she probably said, come up with a reason to leave at some point and do it. But make it look like you're storming out. But they should have known. There's no fucking way that Cersei would let her whole fleet of ships leave like
just
that.
Go.
She'd be like, Gregor, don't let him leave.
Yeah, exactly. You're on. Sit down, or else, here comes the mountain.
Yeah, we'll put somebody else in control of the Iron Fleet. Like. There's no fucking way that she would let him leave. The other thing that was cool was when the Hound and Brienne were reunited, and they're talking, and Brienne is like, I was just trying to protect Arya, and Sandor says the same, me too, and he's like, they're kind of connecting already, like showing very little animosity towards one another.
Yeah,
and the Hound is being very submissive,
even though last time
good pup,
she just about killed him.
Right, so he has to be submissive. He's not gonna try again.
But it looks like there's no hard feelings there. I thought you were dead.
Yeah.
Almost.
I was really happy about that. And so he's like, "Who's protecting her if you're here?" And she's like, "The only one who needs protecting is the one who gets in her way."
Right.
And so Sandor says, "Won't be me," but he has no fucking idea what she's talking about, really.
Right.
You know what I mean? He has no fucking clue that she is like master assassin Sam Fisher up there.
What about Bronn and Tyrion? That was a little sad.
It was sad, but it was great at the same time. Like, it was like, oh man, like Bronn, like being very like disconnective, not connecting on an emotional level, saying like, but I mean, at the same time, it's like, I don't know. They had the conversation. He was talking about putting himself first and everything, but at the same time, he was helping. He was doing Tyrion a favor. He met with Tyrion, did it all.
Why doesn't he take Tyrion up on his offer for double payment, though?
Well, he may. Remember, there was Lannister soldiers marching on both sides of them, and they were talking very loudly to the point where Varys was reacting to their comments walking a few feet behind them. So he probably didn't want to telegraph his actions.
He's like,
there was that great moment. Yeah. Tyrion says, "It's good to see you again," and Bronn says, "Yeah, you too." And I thought that was great. I like that pairing.
What about the revelation that Jon's real name is Aegon Targaryen? Now, Rhaegar had a child named Aegon with Elia Martell, right? And
correct. He was murdered. That child
died. Yeah,
his
killed
head
by
was
the
dashed
mountain
against the wall.
So then he names him Aegon, and he would be, I think, the sixth ruling Aegon. The first was the one that conquered Westeros in the first place.
Correct. There was the first Aegon was that Aegon. Aegon the second was the Aegon that was crowned after the Blackfire. Not sorry, the Dance of the Dragons. It was kind of a coup that ended up with this Aegon taking the throne. I can't remember who Aegon the third is. Aegon the fourth was the crazy one who legitimized all of his bastards and started the Blackfire rebellions. Aegon the fifth was Aegon the Just, who's Lord Commander of his Kingsguard was Sir Duncan the Tall, and they died at the tragedy at Summerhall. So this Aegon, Jon Snow, theoretically would be Aegon the Sixth.
Wow.
And yeah.
That was some serious information there.
Right.
You're like the exact opposite of me.
Just brushed up on that stuff. But I thought it was particularly interesting that, throw the ball over his head, Melly, to me. Monkey in the middle. When during that scene last year at the Tower of Joy, she pulls in Ned, Lyanna pulls him in to tell him, and she says, his name is, and the sound cuts out. But you can see the look on Ned's face is just one of shock and horror, realizing the gravity of the situation. And looking back at it, there's only one name that she could have said that would create that type of look and fear in Ned Stark's face, and that is Aegon Targaryen. Because his best friend is took the throne, and he's just finding out that his nephew is named after the Conqueror himself. The Targaryen that brought the most, his name is the most terrifying name in Westerosi history. Basically, this guy who showed up with all these dragons and took control of the Seven Kingdoms, that is the epitome of the Targaryen name right there is Aegon. So for his nephew to be named that would just be a shocker to him, knowing that his best friend would want to kill him as well. So given that information, he took his promise to Lyanna very seriously, so seriously he never told his wife. Just the gravity of his whole situation.
Yeah, he'd rather be
insane.
Considered a cheater than tell the truth about that.
Yeah, it was too much to risk.
He should have made up another story, though. I found him in a basket.
I know, right? Come on.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I think that's great. You'll have a Still Smug, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
And then I think we should do an episode at some point where we say what we hope will happen in the final season. And,
that'd be fun.
And of course, we're gonna go back and cover seasons 1 through 4, as I mentioned. But right now, that's great. Let's take a little break, but there's more to come. Stay with us. All right, we're back. It's time to talk about the official sponsor this season of the Game of Microphones podcast, and that is Fracture. And we usually get more listeners for finale episodes, so there may be some of you out there that haven't heard about Fracture yet. So what is it? Well, it's your photo printed on this pane of glass in really nice, vivid color. You can get it in any size, really small to really big. You can get a square or a rectangle. They're ready to hang right when you get them, and I really like them because they're very simple and minimal. But they're beautiful in and of themselves, just the material and the way it looks. And on top of that, they're personal to you. It's your photo. It's your memories. They showcase your best photos in a really nice way. And a lot of our best photos are hidden away on our phones. Maybe we post them on Facebook and people see them for a limited time, but there's some photos that would look really good on your wall, and they would be a nice reminder of something that you want to remember or that you want to show off. They're really easy to order and to hang up. And also they make the best gifts because it's hard, I find, to figure out what to give people these days. People kind of have what they want, but, you could give them a Fracture with a picture of you guys or, your kids or something. And it's something, they won't already have. And people really love them from what I've heard. And what I've experienced when I've given them to my relatives and stuff like that. People really like them. So
I love them.
Nice.
Me too. We don't, we don't have hard copies of photos much anymore, like you're saying. So it's pretty cool.
And
it's a lost art.
And these are very elegant.
Yeah.
Very elegant.
They're great and easy, which is a good combo.
Definitely. It's the best combo.
So if you want to get one, go to fractureme.com/podcast and pick Game of Microphones from the list of their podcasts there so they know you heard about it from us. If it's your first time ordering, you can use the code that they'll give you for 10% off your order. That's fractureme.com/podcast. And thank you to Fracture.
Thanks, Fracture.
Yay.
All right. Time for the news.
All right. Welcome to Game of Thrones news. Now, this is our first piece of news today comes from Entertainment Weekly. Game of Thrones stars react to that huge Jon Snow reveal. And we'll just focus on Emilia Clarke here, because that's what we all care about, is how Daenerys is going to react to this. So, it says, Emilia Clarke, how do you think Daenerys Targaryen is going to react in the final season of Game of Thrones to the rather stunning news that her lover, Jon Snow, is also her nephew? We asked the Game of Thrones star this question while she sat on a folding chair amid the ancient Roman ruins of Italica outside Seville, Spain, last fall. Clarke paused, considering, then she loudly cried, "Ew!" and laughed. I think that's how it's going to go. I get the toothbrush. And she pretended to start frantically brushing her tongue.
That's awesome.
It was a hilarious reaction that yeah, like, Finkel is Einhorn type of reaction. It was a hilarious reaction that underscores the rather seriously emotional, game-changing revelation that threatens to shake up the final season of Game of Thrones. I pointed out that Daenerys has presumably long assumed she'll avoid her family's long predilection for incest. Exactly, Clarke says. And then I walked back into it. And so...
that might be the tragedy of it. They might just not want to...
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they might not want to continue that pattern.
Right.
But if she's already pregnant, it's too late, really. And what about the fact that Jon Snow, or Aegon Targaryen, has a better claim to the Iron Throne than she does? And she says, I've worked so hard... I don't want to share that throne, she replied. No, the throne's big enough for one dragon bum, and that's mine. That's it. So that'll be interesting.
Yep,
there you go.
And what would Jon say in your impression of Jon?
You can take it. I never asked to be made king.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. Then our next piece of news comes from Indian Express. And it's Game of Thrones actor Kit Harington to play his own 17th century ancestor in BBC drama Gunpowder. The series is based on a failed assassination attempt called The Gunpowder Plot. The series will star famous actors like Liv Tyler and Mark Gatiss.
Wow.
Yeah. The next piece of news is kind of sad for me. Rick and Morty agrees with you. Game of Thrones is bad now. You're not. So it says you're not alone in thinking that Game of Thrones, with its accelerated timeline, undead TED talk, and Cersei's curious lack of hair growth, is simply not as good as it once was. Yes, there's an ice dragon, but whatever happened to a season where the Stark sisters had discernible character motivations? The creators of Rick and Morty know your gripes and appropriately eulogized them after this week's episode. In a post-credits sequence, the show ran a title card mourning the writing of Game of Thrones. It said, basically, it was just the text saying, the writing of Game of Thrones, 2011 to 2016.
Whatever.
Wow, so that's sad.
Maybe she's been trimming. Maybe she's just like, you know what, this is a very good look for me. And she's been like trimming it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's going for the Joffrey.
Yeah, she's
why
bold.
not?
She's
Both of her sons
100%
Obviously.
Joffrey.
Like, that's a stupid
definitely.
complaint. I mean, yeah, there's people
But I
complaining
have
about...
to admit, I did recognize that as well. We were just literally talking about it last night. I'm like, wow, her hair has not grown. So I recognized it, but then I came up with a reason.
Yeah.
That she's trimming it.
Yep.
They're actually, I mean, that's what they're doing to the actress. They're cutting her hair. Otherwise it would grow. But there's also, complaints about pacing, and some of the complaints I have too, and I've said them in this podcast, but to me, they're pretty minor compared to how awesome this show is. Still one of the best shows ever on TV, I think. So that's my position on it.
Yeah, I think it's the best. I mean, I haven't seen every TV show ever made, but it's the best one that I've seen.
Right.
For sure. So
Breaking
our
Bad's
next
pretty
piece
awesome,
of news. Oh, yeah, Breaking Bad's great too. Game of Thrones is just next level, though, in my opinion.
I'm all Deadwood. It's pretty good.
Like the technical accomplishments of Game of Thrones, like dwarf anything that was ever done in Breaking Bad, for instance.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's taken like filmmaking or TV making to another level.
There's some good meth
ways.
montages, but yeah.
Oh yeah, and some cool box cutters. Our next article is an interview with Entertainment Weekly with our friend and good compatriot Peter Baelish, talking about his reaction to to his death, basically at the end of this. He talks about how he found out about the death, and it's through the infamous phone call. It was so obvious what it is. Showrunners Dan Weiss and Benioff never ring you up, maybe once in 6 years. I learned about the call from Roose Bolton actor Michael McElhatton when he told me about the call, and he talked about how it made him feel. And I thought, if I get that call, or rather when, as this has got to happen sooner or later to a character like Littlefinger, I wondered how it would make me feel. Because the show is such a part of your life for so many years, you start to think, what will your life be outside of it? It's a potent loss. So how did it make you feel? You're left a little bereft for your character and for your experience. It also immediately makes you quantify the hugeness of what that experience has been over the last 7 years, which has been massive. They ask if the showrunners joked around at all or if they were straightforward. So he says, no joke. They just promised me a river of blood. Well, it wasn't really a river of blood, but they promised me more than poor Michael got. The guy, Bruce Bolton. Let's see, what else is there? He says, what was your last day like? My last day on the set wasn't even that scene. The execution was the second scene he shot for the series, or for the season, so that's pretty interesting. He says, I quite enjoyed doing things that way, shooting Littlefinger's death and then shooting what comes before. When you know what's coming, you relax a little in the way you're interacting with others. There's something else that seeps into your performance, a kind of serenity. But yeah, I did. And it's got to be interesting, too, because you know where things are going, so you know what kind of inflections to add and how to play things a little bit more accurately. So he says, but yeah, I did find it quite emotional shooting the final scene. And I don't necessarily mean that I was sad, but it's an emotional moment for the character, so I felt what he was feeling. For the real last day at work, David and Dan weren't there, but co-executive producer Brian Cogman called people in and said a few words, and my son was there with me. That was quite something. And I got my Mockingbird pin, which he got to keep, it sounds like, so that's pretty cool. I had already let them know I wanted it, and I cleverly worked it, so I got two. There was one from my cloak and one from my tunic. So I got the large and the small size, one for me and one for my son.
That's nice. That must have been, to work on something for so long and have it, come to an end is got to be pretty emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
especially
it's gotta be
something
really,
like that.
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah.
It's been so monumental.
That last scene of his, he really did it justice, in my opinion.
Oh, it was
Definitely.
great. It was nerve-wracking, and it was just like, oh, shit. Yeah, it was really good. He's an amazing actor.
Yep, and he goes on to say that he felt glad about the way it ended up playing out, and that he thought that he was happy that he got a good arc in the final season with him and everything. So I'm glad he's happy with it. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna miss Baelish though. He was great.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. So our next piece of news comes from WatchersOnTheWall.com, which is a great website. They have good reviews of the episodes and news and everything there. So check that out. The season finale, The Dragon and the Wolf, has broken all Game of Thrones' previous viewership number records, achieving a series high. Deadline reports that last night, Game of Thrones drew in 12.1 million viewers for the finale. Episode 5, Eastwatch, held the previous record with 10.72 million viewers watching the initial airing. Yeah, so that is huge.
Yeah.
Got another article about Con of Thrones, which is a big Game of Thrones con this past year, which will be returning in 2018. So that's good news. Search for that. And our last piece of news is from Watchers on the Wall, and HBO reveals that The Game Revealed is returning for the postseason. And that's basically a Game of Thrones behind-the-scenes special featurette called The Game Revealed that will be airing pretty soon, I guess, packed with all kinds of behind-the-scenes videos that will be released weekly. And it'll be 7 parts, and we'll include interviews with all kinds of cast and crew members, providing insight into the show's biggest moments of season 7. So that is it for the news today.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, let's move along to Raven's Calls.
I think that's Melly every time. I kind of tried to speed through that for you, Melly. So
for what?
Got time for this part.
The crows. The news.
No, the news, so we could get to the Ravens calls.
I like the crows.
No.
I'll play it again. No, just kidding. Okay.
Phil Belanzik says, "Unreal. My mind is still trying to process the amount of awesomeness that went down in this episode. It had everything you'd want in a season finale. I like that it tied a lot of loose ends, and that intense ending framed it nicely for the final season."
Yeah.
Sarah Oakes, everything I've ever wanted happened tonight. All of the characters we've been following were finally all together on screen. Jaime is turning into the hero we know he is. The Whites have torn down the wall.
Oof.
Littlefinger got what's been coming to him. And for my number one, Jon and Daenerys got together. Bonus point. Bonus point. People know Jon isn't a bastard and is actually the true king of the Seven Kingdoms. Jon and Daenerys had to get together before they knew, and now she's totally pregnant, and we all know how Jon feels about bastards. Can't wait for next season.
Oh, good call about the bastard thing. That's so funny. That means they have to get married if she's pregnant.
Optimistic way of looking at it. They're going to be married, and it'll be
romantic.
fine.
Or he'll die first, and they won't get to be married, and then he'll have a bastard on his hands.
Yeah. I'd say there's like a 90% chance of that. No, just kidding. Moondella says she's totally going to get pregnant. 2 pregnant queens going at it. Fierce.
Oh, man. They do like to mirror things with on the show. So Cersei's pregnant. That probably means Dany's going to be pregnant. Yeah. Yep, definitely. Rita Melvin says, wow, incredible season finale. The demonstration of how to kill a White Walker was glorious.
Yes.
Just to clarify, that was a white, but the sentiment is dead on.
Right.
That was so cool. Great scene.
Nick Quinto says, I think that's the first time we've ever seen Cersei scared. Now that's scary. That's true. I didn't even. It's funny you guys said that because I noticed that, but I was like, but I didn't really pay attention to it. It's true.
Realize the significance of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Olivia Deck says, great to see Littlefinger finally tumble down his ladder of chaos and getting what he deserves. Being killed by his own blade was icing on the cake. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, that blade went full circle.
And we found out, I don't think we ever knew for sure that was his, right? But now we know.
Now we know, yeah. Lisa Marie Coltrane says, once Sansa said the worst possible motivation for Arya was her wanting to be Lady of Winterfell, I knew they were onto him. Sansa knows that's the last thing Arya would want. And yeah, it's debatable whether they've been plotting and leading Littlefinger on this whole time,
or
just to
whether
get
she just figured it out in that moment,
right? Or whether that moment was when the light bulb came, lit up for her. And
that's what I
if she
think.
hadn't known, that's when the light bulb definitely would have gone off.
Because she looked really disturbed in that moment, and I think it could be that she was disturbed going, Littlefinger's playing me right now.
Oh, snap. Yeah. Yep. That's what, my mom said the same thing. That's what she thought. That was the light bulb moment.
This is Sherry Morford. Yay.
Sherry!
Well, that was terrifying. Taking the wall down was frighteningly easy for the Night King. I don't know how our side can possibly win. I know. I guess we still have 2 dragons. We still have 2 non-dead dragons.
For now.
Other thoughts. Cersei sucks. I can't believe I have to wait 2 years to see Jon find out he just fucked his aunt.
I think that's the first time that sentence has ever been written.
Ever. Yeah.
In the history of humankind.
Well, I don't know. Never mind.
You're like, my family. No, just kidding.
I'm from the Ozarks.
Sherry, I think Sherry's onto something. I think this dragon is going to be a lot harder to take down than we had speculated. Because when the Night King creates a White Walker, I think the dragon is a White Walker dragon. I don't think it's just a white dragon. I think it's sort of been granted this gift that the White Walkers have, where they become very powerful,
sentient, and intelligent.
You know, Cersei's
potentially.
Cersei has that weapon, the dragon-killing weapon. They're gonna have to do that, but they're gonna have to make it out of the dragon stone, dragon glass. Yeah. There's gonna have to be because they do have those dragon-killing spears. But I think they're going to have to concoct.
They're going to have to dragon glass version.
Right.
Wow, that's really good, Melly. I hadn't even thought of that. Brilliant. But yeah, the White Walkers become like super strong and like invincible nearly. So I think that the dragon, like a White Walker dragon, is going to be even faster and stronger. And we saw it. It was super ferocious. Its fire was next level.
All you have to do is stab it with an dragon glass arrowhead and it'll shatter, though. That's the thing about the White Walkers.
That's true. They definitely have a big weakness.
Yeah.
Unless it's dragon, flesh of fire counteracts that somehow.
Right.
Right. Derek Pacheco says, it's a weird feeling knowing this was somehow the best and worst season of television ever. Nonetheless, they did their jobs enough to hook us in for the final season. I will unfortunately be going to bed unable to shake the feeling that this show shouldn't have been created until George was done with the story. D&D clearly would have benefited so much by having George involved. I can't argue with that. It's too bad we don't get to ever find out what the show would be like if he had been done with the books.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
Good point.
Matthew Rep says, I was so angry when I thought that they were going to that they were throwing away the threat Euron could be by having him run away. Yeah, that would have been out of character.
It seems so ridiculous. Like just seeing one white without knowing.
Yeah, I'm out of here.
Yeah, fuck this.
Yeah, no way.
Although he did do the thing that a lot of people do when you think about what you would do in the zombie apocalypse. Oh, we'll go to an island.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
I'm going to be, Becky Price, I am so satisfied with this episode. Also, all the haters and naysayers can finally say they addressed the time issue. We heard both war parties discussing the length of travel time in this episode. See? Time exists in Season 7 Westeros.
I don't remember that, but I'll take your word for it.
I was drinking a lot of red wine.
It'll take the Dothraki, a fortnight to get from here to White Harbor on the King's Road.
That's right.
Yeah. And now we know why John was like, we should take the boat.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think he just wanted to get
the love boat.
Yeah,
right.
there you go.
I really think it would be better to take the boat.
I would puke the entire time, so I don't think it's better. There would be no sex for me, because I'd be vomiting upon my lover.
Oh, man.
That's not hot. Unless you're into that,
so
then that's
romantic.
hot. Yeah,
right. That's funny. Dramamine works pretty good, but then you're just drowsy as hell.
Boo, yeah.
Michael Twardzelo says, Danny/John getting it on while narration confirms they are related was interesting. Don't know how many viewers can put their general real-world views of incest aside and buy into the show's worldviews. I can.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different
Me too,
time.
man.
It's like, yeah.
I can.
I kind of can too. As, kinky as that sounds, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I'm so used to the Targaryen incest concept that it's like doesn't even faze me. Even Dany had said like that she was initially, but basically had been planning on marrying Viserys.
Right.
Right.
I mean, that first episode with, they showed Jaime going at it with Cersei. I was like, what kind of show is this?
Yeah.
And Viserys was like, touching Daenerys in inappropriate ways and everything too.
Mm-hmm.
That episode, it was very uncomfortable. Be thrust into that.
So to speak.
Yeah. So what? Okay. Lisa Marie Coltrane says, I got a bad feeling about Tyrion this episode, and he's my favorite of all. But he must have told Cersei something after he realized she was pregnant to get her back to the table. And what was that look about when he realized Dany and Jon were getting down with the motion of the ocean?
I guess we'll find out. It was a little confusing.
Yeah. I know. I'm scared. And what made it particularly unnerving was Ramin Djawadi's choice of note to be played in the music at that moment when it showed Tyrion. It was a very, very ominous note. It made me uncomfortable.
Yeah, there's something going on there.
Yeah.
This is David Gaines, Blue Flame Dragon. To quote a wise man, we fucked.
We fucked.
Benjamin Denny says, did anyone take note of that split second that the camera panned past Jaime and froze on Widow's Wail for a moment before continuing to pan to Cersei? Sir Jaime, the king/queen slayer?
Mm-hmm. I hope so.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that would make him the king/queen/kin slayer.
And then he'd be the most metal band ever on the face of the planet.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be epic. I didn't catch that, but that's a really good catch. Michael Darwin says, my only question, did Tormund and Beric live or die when the wall fell? Well, we didn't see them die.
I'm gonna go
So they
live.
must have lived.
Yes.
I'm saying live.
Yeah.
Beric has to live to see the Hound, and Tormund has to live to get down with the motion of the ocean of Brienne. As well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Megan Dively.
Megan Dively Lemon. Sorry, I didn't bold this.
Oh, Megan
All three
Dively
of them.
Lemon. We didn't get the Jon and Dany first kiss we deserved. We just got a longing look, the naked city. That's true. I'm kind of with you in that, romantic way. First kiss would have been nice. But, they just went naked.
My
cool, though. Nothing needed
Mardini
to be
says,
said.
but that ass, though.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Rima Joe says, it happened. Jon and Dany, The air absolutely sparks and sizzles when they're breathing in the same space, so this was inevitable. And wow, I was sweating the entire time, and I desperately needed a cold drink. Okay, it's not all I needed, but I'm trying to keep it clean. Rima. Way to go, Game of Thrones making incest mainstream. What will the news do to John and Danny knowing he's the true heir? This will surely tear them apart at
Johnny
the least.
Snow.
And yeah, Johnny Snow.
Johnny.
This will surely tear them apart at the least, and one or both may die at the worst. Damn this show. As much as I want them together, this was why I fought it in the beginning, knowing this could be a possible outcome. And with the end of the episode brought us, does it matter? Didn't we know since the beginning the wall was coming down eventually? My poor, sweet Viserion with the Night King on his back, breathing some badass. I don't know. Was it icy fire? Viserion is still a badass, but I'm still heartbroken by what he's become. Will he kill one of his brothers? Will one of his brothers kill him? Will Viserion die if the Night King is killed? Winter is here and death marches forward, and Winterfell is a stone's throw away. What do we do until season 8? Oh yeah, rewatch of the entire series. Till then, Throners.
Yep. Watch it slowly. We've got a lot of time.
Yep. There's 67 episodes now. And if Game of Thrones season 8 doesn't come on till January, that's just over 67 weeks, right? So
I've heard it's going to be 2 years, dudes. I don't know if that's right or wrong,
Really?
but I keep hearing people they're throwing out
There's
2 years.
speculation that it might come out in 2019, but it doesn't necessarily mean the end of 2019.
That's true. I guess
Could
it is
be
late
January.
2000.
Yeah.
You're right.
I was hoping. I'm optimistically hoping for January 2019, but it could be 2 years.
Yeah.
No question.
Gotcha.
They haven't said anything, so but I think they're going to start filming a few months later than normal, so or even than they did this season, which was already later. So
Well, and
it's
I
gonna be
hope
later.
Yeah, they're.
I hope each
filming in
episode is
October.
like 2 hours long at least.
I mean, one thing we didn't mention is that Jamie saw snow at King's Landing, so
Right.
winter's
Man.
coming down south, and so they're going to want to have some wintry scenes. So they'll film later in the year.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's gonna be so crazy, man. That was a big thing to not mention too.
And we had one email, Melissa.
Gary in Illinois. Hello, all. A question I can't get out of my head is who was the Night's King before the transformation? Yeah, me too. Was he just a regular Joe, or was he a highborn Stark? Does it even matter? I don't read the book, so don't know if that was explained. I just can't help that he has ties to some important house. Thanks. Love the podcast. Yeah, that's funny. I never even thought of that. Oh, yeah.
We
Who is
saw
that guy?
him.
Who is that
Stark.
fucking guy?
You know, when they showed the children in the forest talking about how they created the White Walkers, and they showed a flashback of one of them pushing dragon glass into a man's chest.
Oh, that's
It was the same
Right, that was
actor
him,
that
yeah.
plays the Night King. So, but that doesn't
Vladimir
mean
Furdik.
we know anything about him. It just
yeah.
we saw that happen. But I think in the book, aren't there some? I mean, maybe you should say that since it's a long podcast, but you might want to talk about that on Still Smug.
Yeah, good call.
Okay, and we have one call from our good friend Laura Willie Swink.
Hey guys, Laura calling in with my feedback. Oh my god. My TV was melting, and it wasn't from the dragon. So John and Tony finally combined ice and fire, and it was steamy. Oh, I know, that was so bad. I just had to. I really hope, though, that they had a secret wedding on that boat because, you know, John's biggest hang-up is that he doesn't want to father a bastard, and I have a feeling he just fathered a bastard. In Winterfell, I was so worried that Sansa and Arya were actually going to destroy each other up until the 11th hour, even though I had a feeling that they had something going on, but I was so nervous for them, but our little she-wolves finally came through. They busted Littlefinger with, a little bit of help from Bran. Thanks for chiming in, Bran. And the Stark sisters finally squished the flea that had been biting their family from season 1. It's so awesome! And now they've got this great tool to use against Cersei, being Lord Baelish's face, which I really hope Arya puts to good use. Why did Rhaegar have to look so much like Dany's douchebag brother Viserys?
I know.
No, he's supposed to be a dreamboat, not a slimy bastard. And why the hell was Tyrion being such a creeper on the boat? I mean, wasn't he and Dany just like 2 episodes ago sitting there gossiping like schoolgirls? Oh, girl, that's Jon Snow. He's totally into you. So what gives now? Makes me very suspicious about Tyrion. Finally, the winter in King's Landing was awesome. It was so beautiful, and it's finally here. I know I must be a child of Winterfell because I love winter. I love the snow, and seeing it fall in King's Landing was just so beautiful and peaceful until we go up north and the horror of what is to come, the ice dragon blowing down the wall. I couldn't believe it, and I'm keeping a candle lit for Tormund in hopes that we're going to see him again in Season 8. Well, my watch has ended for now, but let's bring on the rewatch. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Awesome.
All right. That was a great call.
Yeah. All right, that's our show, episode 41. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thank you for sticking with us throughout this season. We had a ton of fun talking about this awesome show. I wanted to mention also, I hope everyone is okay out in Texas where it's like hurricaning right now. Write in if you're from there. Let us know that you're okay.
You're definitely in our thoughts.
If you want to call us, you can reach us at 813-563-3739. That's 813-JOFFREY.
If you'd like to write in, you can email us at game@podcastica.com.
You can also check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/GOM podcast.
You can check out all the other great podcasts on our network at podcastica.com. If you miss Mr. Blog, you should check out his Under the Comic Covers. We've got Walking Dead casts going weekly now, so Karen and I are going to be on this week talking about Hitchcock's Rear Window. Looking forward to that. Next episode on this podcast, Game of Thrones Season 1, Episode 1.
Nice.
After Still Smug, which I'm sure is going to be amazing. And please also check out our Patreon. I gave you a slew of things to do, but this one is patreon.com/Jason and Karen. All right, that's our show.
Thanks for listening.
The long night is here.